My fiancée cheated, then told me I still had to pay for her girls' trip because saying no was controlling. When I cut off the money and walked away instead, she fell apart in front of the same friends she bragged to about her freedom. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this one's a doozy. My fiancée cheated on me, told me I was controlling for not wanting to fund her vacation anymore, and then had a complete meltdown in front of the same friends she'd been bragging to about her newfound freedom. Here's how that played out. I'm Garrett, 31 years old, and I work as a welder for a commercial fabrication company in northern Arizona. Been doing it for about 9 years now, and I'm good at it. Real good. The kind of good where companies call my boss specifically asking if I'm available for their projects. Certified in TIG, MIG, stick welding, you name it. I pull in solid money, own my own truck outright, and bought a 3-bedroom house 2 years ago that I've been slowly renovating on weekends. Not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and then some. Plus, there's something satisfying about building things with your hands, watching raw metal transform into something functional and permanent. My dad was a welder before me, taught me everything I know before he passed 5 years ago from a heart attack that came out of nowhere. Every time I strike an arc, I feel connected to him somehow. He used to say a man's worth is measured by what he builds, not what he buys. My house is this 1970s ranch that needed serious work when I bought it. Previous owners had let it go to seed for about 15 years, but I saw the potential underneath the neglect. Spent my first 6 months ripping out carpet that was older than me, refinishing the original hardwood floors that had been hidden underneath, updating the electrical that was still running on the original 100 amp service. The kitchen was a disaster zone of orange laminate counters and avocado appliances that probably hadn't been updated since Nixon was in office, but I gutted it down to the studs and rebuilt it myself. New cabinets I ordered from a wholesaler and installed myself. Granite countertops that I got at cost through a buddy who works in stone fabrication. Stainless steel appliances that I bought during a holiday sale and had delivered one piece at a time. My buddy Jake helped with the plumbing, because I'm not an idiot who thinks YouTube videos make him a licensed plumber. Some things you leave to the professionals. Jake's been my best friend since high school, works as a licensed electrician now, owns his own house about 15 minutes from mine, and has this golden retriever named Duke who thinks he's a lapdog despite weighing about 80 pounds. Jake's the kind of guy who'll drop everything to help you move a couch or bail you out of a bad situation. We've had each other's back since we were 16 years old working summer jobs at the same landscaping company. That's where I met Brittany, not at the landscaping company, but at my house. She was a real estate agent showing the property next door to some young couple looking to buy their first home, and I was outside replacing my mailbox post that had rotted through at the base. She wandered over to say hello, probably curious about the sweaty guy with the post hole digger and concrete mix. We got to talking about the neighborhood, the housing market, whether I was selling anytime soon. I told her I'd just bought the place and planned to stay forever. She laughed and said that was rare in her business. Most people treated houses like investments to flip rather than homes to live in. She seemed genuinely interested in the renovation work I'd been doing. We exchanged numbers that afternoon. Within a month, we were officially dating. Brittany was gorgeous in that effortlessly put-together way that some women just seem to master. Always had her nails done in some neutral shade that cost way more than nail polish should. Hairstyled even when she was just running errands. Dressed like she was about to walk into a business meeting even on casual Saturday afternoons when we were just grabbing lunch. She sold houses for one of those big franchise agencies with the distinctive signs and was pretty successful at it too. Made decent money, drove a nice car, had a condo downtown with a view of the mountains. What drew me to her initially was how different we were. She was all polish and presentation while I showed up to dates with grease still under my fingernails half the time. She thought it was charming, called me her rugged guy and her blue-collar king, said she was tired of dating soft men who couldn't change a tire or hang a shelf without calling a handyman. Guys who didn't know the difference between a Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver. For a while, that seemed true. She'd come over to my place while I worked on projects, sitting on the tailgate of my truck while I cut lumber or welded brackets for the pergola I was building in the backyard. She'd ask questions about what I was doing, seemed genuinely interested in the process. She'd bring me sandwiches and sit with me in the garage while I worked on the old motorcycle I was restoring, a 1978 Honda CB750 that I'd found on Craigslist for practically nothing. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. Did the whole thing right too. Took her to Sedona, hiked to Cathedral Rock at sunset because she'd mentioned once how much she loved that view. Got down on one knee with a ring I'd saved 6 months to afford. It was a princess cut diamond, just over a carat, set in white gold because she'd mentioned once she preferred silver tones to yellow gold. I'd been paying attention. She cried, said yes, kissed me about 15 times while saying, "Oh my God," over and over. Then she posted it all over social media within 30 seconds of the ring going on her finger. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, hashtags like Icides and Fiancée and engaged with about 50 emojis. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. The ring wasn't even fully on before she was angling for the perfect photo, adjusting her hand, asking me to hold my position so she could get the sunset in the background. The engagement was real. The performance of the engagement was what mattered more. Her parents were decent enough, I guess. Her dad, Richard, was some kind of financial consultant who worked from home and seemed perpetually distracted by whatever was happening on his laptop. Her mom, Linda, was a former pageant queen turned homemaker who had opinions about everything and shared them freely, whether you asked or not. The decor in your house, the brand of car you drove, whether you should be wearing that shirt with those pants. Nothing was too small for Linda's unsolicited commentary. They weren't thrilled about their daughter marrying a welder, but they kept their disapproval to polite skepticism rather than outright hostility. Small comments here and there. Questions that weren't really questions. Linda once asked me at a family dinner if I'd ever considered transitioning to management at my company. Like welding was just a stepping stone to a real career, rather than a skilled trade that paid better than most office jobs. I told her welders with my certifications make more than most managers, and she just smiled that tight smile people do when they've decided you're beneath them, but are too polite to say it out loud. Richard asked me once what my 5-year plan was. I told him my plan was to keep doing good work, keep improving my house, and build a life with his daughter. He nodded, like I'd just told him I planned to collect bottle caps for a living and hope for the best. The engagement period started strong enough. We set a date for the following October, started planning the wedding, opened a joint account specifically for wedding expenses. I put in $12,000 from my savings, money I'd been setting aside for years. Brittany contributed $8,000. We had a budget, a timeline, a venue booked, and a shared Google Doc tracking every vendor and deposit. Then came the friends. Brittany had this group of girlfriends from her sorority days at the state university. Megan, Courtney, Ashley, and Danielle. They called themselves the Fabulous Five, without a single trace of irony or self-awareness. All of them were some variation of real estate agent, marketing coordinator, or influencer, with 3,000 Instagram followers and delusions of sponsorship deals that never materialized. These women operated like a hive mind. Whatever one of them thought, they all thought. Whatever one of them decided to do, they all had to do it together. And increasingly, whatever they thought Brittany should do became gospel truth that couldn't be questioned. Megan was the ringleader. Twice divorced by 29, worked at some boutique marketing firm where her job title included words like synergy and engagement metrics, and had an opinion about everyone else's relationship despite her own track record reading, like a cautionary tale about what not to do with your love life. She'd been with her current boyfriend for maybe 4 months, and already talked about him like he was a backup plan she was tolerating until something better came along. I noticed the shift in Brittany around 8 months into our engagement. She started going out more with the girls. Happy hours that used to end by 7 turned into club nights that went until 2 in the morning. Club nights turned into weekend trips to Phoenix or Vegas or wherever the Fabulous Five decided they needed to be. And somewhere along the line, I became the obstacle rather than the partner. The first time I felt it was when I suggested we stay in one Saturday night because I'd been working long shifts all week and was exhausted. She looked at me like I'd asked her to give up her firstborn child. Said the girls were counting on her. Said I was being clingy. Said I needed to understand that she wasn't going to be one of those women who disappeared into her relationship. I let it go. Figured she was right. Figured I was being too needy. The first real argument was about a bachelorette trip. The Fabulous Five had decided Brittany absolutely needed a destination bachelorette party in Miami. 5 days, luxury hotel on South Beach, VIP tables at the hottest clubs, private yacht rental, the whole ridiculous package. Price tag somewhere north of $4,000 per person. I suggested that seemed excessive, considering we were trying to save for the wedding and honeymoon we'd planned for Italy. Brittany accused me of being controlling. That word. Controlling. It became the go-to accusation whenever I expressed any opinion she didn't like. I pointed out that I wasn't saying she couldn't go, just that maybe they could do something more reasonable. Vegas for a weekend was still plenty fun. A spa retreat locally would be relaxing. Something that didn't require a small mortgage and maxing out credit cards. She said I didn't understand how important her friendships were, that I was trying to isolate her from the people who mattered most, that Megan had warned her I might start showing my true colors eventually, and here they were. Megan. Of course. The twice-divorced relationship expert had opinions about my controlling behavior. She went to Miami anyway. I didn't fight it because I figured picking my battles was the mature thing to do. She came back with a tan, exhaustion that lasted 3 full days, and $4,000 less in her personal savings that she definitely couldn't afford to spend. The trip apparently included the private yacht day, expensive dinners every night, a VIP section at some club I'd never heard of, and a sunrise beach photo shoot with a photographer they hired specifically for Instagram content. The Instagram posts from that trip were interesting. Lots of bikini shots, lots of glasses held up against sunset backgrounds, lots of captions about freedom and living her best life, and girls supporting girls. Not a single mention of the fact that she was engaged. Not one photo of the ring. Not one hashtag about having a fiancé at home. When I brought that up casually, trying not to sound accusatory, she said I was being paranoid, that everyone knew she was engaged, that she didn't need to announce it constantly to prove her commitment to me. That confidence in a relationship meant not needing constant validation. She made me feel crazy for even asking. Things deteriorated quickly after Miami. She started working late more often. Client meetings that ran long into the evening. Open houses that somehow required her presence until midnight on a Tuesday. Networking events that she'd never mentioned before and couldn't really describe when I asked about them. I'm not an idiot, and I'm not the jealous type by nature, but something felt wrong. That gut feeling you get when the math doesn't add up, when the story has holes you can't quite identify but definitely feel. Then I met Blake. It was completely accidental. I was grabbing lunch at this sandwich shop near my work site, standing in line scrolling through my phone, and Brittany was there. With a guy, sitting at a booth in the back corner, very close together, laughing at something on his phone, her hand on his forearm in that familiar way that isn't just friendly, that lingering touch that communicates something more. She didn't see me. I watched for maybe 30 seconds, long enough to confirm that what I was seeing wasn't innocent, then quietly left without ordering. Didn't confront her, didn't make a scene, just filed it away in my mind and started paying much closer attention to everything. Blake was a mortgage broker who worked in the same building as Brittany's real estate office. I found this out through some basic observation and a few careful questions over the following weeks. He drove a Tesla, wore expensive suits, had that slick salesman energy and 2 white teeth that some women apparently find attractive. He was also, according to his LinkedIn profile that I found after maybe 15 seconds of searching, still married. To a woman named Jennifer. They had 2 kids together and a house in the suburbs. I didn't confront Brittany immediately. Instead, I started documenting everything, noting the times her stories didn't match up with reality, screenshotting the Instagram posts where she happened to be at the same restaurant or event as Blake's check-ins, building a timeline of every late client meeting and networking dinner that coincidentally overlapped with Blake's schedule based on his own social media. Call it paranoid. Call it obsessive. I call it protecting myself from the gaslighting that I knew was coming. The definitive confirmation came about 6 weeks later. She left her iPad at my house after spending the weekend, and a text notification popped up on the screen while I was cleaning up the kitchen, from Blake. The message preview alone was damning enough that I didn't need to read the full conversation. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. I didn't explode. Didn't throw anything. Didn't call her screaming. Just sat there at my kitchen table, staring at that iPad screen like it had personally betrayed me. In a way, I suppose it had. It was the messenger of something I'd already known in my gut, but hadn't wanted to admit to myself. My first call was to Jake. He came over within the hour, took one look at my face, and just asked, "How bad?" I showed him the text. He read it, handed the iPad back to me, and sat down heavily on my couch. Asked what my plan was. I didn't have one yet, but I would. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in acting normal, while your entire world is falling apart. I didn't let on that I knew anything. Played the dutiful fiancé, talked about wedding plans like they mattered, even went to a venue tour with her and pretended to care about centerpiece options and table arrangements. Meanwhile, I was quietly untangling my life from hers piece by piece. I withdrew my $12,000 from the wedding account, every penny I'd contributed, left her $8,000 completely untouched. I wasn't a thief. I was just reclaiming what was mine. Canceled my contributions to the joint credit card we'd opened specifically for wedding expenses. Quietly moved important documents, tools, and valuables that she had access to back to secured locations. Changed the passwords on accounts I'd foolishly shared with her. The wedding vendors were trickier. We'd put deposits down on several of them together. Caterer, photographer, DJ, florist. I let those ride for now because I wanted to time everything perfectly. No point in tipping my hand before I was ready to play it. Then came the girls' trip. 3 weeks before our scheduled wedding date, Brittany announced that the Fabulous Five were planning a pre-wedding getaway. Cabo San Lucas. 6 days at an all-inclusive resort on the beach. Sort of a combination celebration slash bachelorette sequel since Miami was so long ago, and she deserved one more trip as a single woman. The cost was substantial. Nearly $5,000 per person for the resort package they wanted, plus flights and spending money. Brittany sat me down one evening with this expectant look on her face. The look that said she'd rehearsed what she was about to say, and fully expected me to agree without question. So the girls and I have been planning this Cabo trip as one last hurrah before the wedding. It's going to be absolutely amazing. The resort has spa services, private beach cabanas, infinity pools, everything. I need you to transfer the money into my personal account by Friday so I can book it. I just looked at her. You need me to transfer money? Well, yeah. It's like $5,000 for my share, not counting spending money, and I don't have it liquid right now. I'm still paying off Miami, honestly. I figured you could cover it from the savings, and I'll pay you back after the wedding when things settle down, and I'm selling more houses. Pay me back with what? You spent your savings on Miami. You've been spending money on stuff I don't even see. What happened to the budget we agreed on? Her expression flickered, a micro-expression of annoyance before she smoothed it over, with practiced patience, like she was explaining something simple to someone too stupid to understand. This is important to me, Garrett. It's my last trip as a single woman. My friends have been planning this for months, and they're counting on me. I can't be the one who ruins it for everyone. Your last trip as a single woman? You're not single, Brittany. You're engaged. You're supposed to be getting married in 3 weeks. You know what I mean. Before I'm tied down. Before everything changes. Tied down. Changes. Nice. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my face carefully neutral. I'm not funding a $5,000 vacation 3 weeks before our wedding. We have actual wedding expenses to worry about. The caterer's final payment is due. The photographer needs the balance. We don't have money to throw at another luxury trip. And there it was. The face. The wounded, indignant, how dare you face that I'd seen increasingly often over the past few months. You're being controlling again. This is exactly what Megan warned me about. You don't want me to have any fun. You don't want me to have friends or experiences or anything that doesn't involve you. You want to keep me trapped here while you control every single dollar I spend. Megan warned you about me not giving you thousands of dollars for vacation? Twice divorced Megan who hasn't paid her own rent in 3 years? That Megan? See, there you go attacking my friends again. She said you'd start getting worse once the wedding got closer. That men like you always show their true colors eventually when they think they've got a woman locked down. Men like me. Men who think they can control their partners through money and manipulation. Men who seem nice at first, but turn into controlling monsters once they feel secure. I actually laughed. Out loud. The audacity of the accusation coming from a woman who was actively sleeping with someone else was almost impressive in its shamelessness. Brittany, I'm not controlling you. I'm declining to fund a luxury vacation that we genuinely cannot afford 3 weeks before our wedding. That's not control. That's basic financial sense. That's being a responsible adult. She stood up, grabbed her designer purse from the counter. Fine. I'll figure it out myself. I always do. But you should know that my friends are right about you. You're not the man I thought you were. Funny, I said, keeping my voice completely level. I was just thinking the same exact thing about you. She left, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows in their frames. I sat there in the quiet of my living room for a long time after, processing what had just happened. She'd called me controlling for not handing over $5,000 for a vacation with her friends. The same friends who'd been encouraging her to live her best life while she was sleeping with a married mortgage broker behind my back. The same friends she posted about constantly while never mentioning that she was engaged. She didn't come back that night, or the next. Got a few texts about how she was staying with Megan while I thought about my behavior and attitude. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I made some calls. Canceled our venue reservation, eating the deposit because I genuinely didn't care about the money anymore. Canceled the caterer. Canceled the photographer. Canceled the DJ and the florist and the bakery making our cake. Sent a polite, brief email to all the invited guests, explaining that the wedding was canceled due to irreconcilable differences discovered during the planning process. I also called her father. Richard seemed confused when I asked to meet him for lunch without Brittany present, but he agreed after a pause. We met at a quiet diner near his house, just the two of us in a booth in the back. I told him everything. The cheating, the documentation I'd gathered, the text from Blake, the financial manipulation, the way his daughter had been treating me like an ATM while carrying on with a married man. I showed him screenshots, I showed him the timeline. I laid it all out calmly, without emotion, like I was presenting evidence in court. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back and rubbed his face with both hands, suddenly looking about 10 years older. I wish I could say I'm surprised, he finally said. But I'm not. Linda and I have been worried about Brittany's friend group for a while now. Those girls have been a bad influence since their sorority days, always encouraging her worst impulses, always pushing her toward things that weren't good for her. Did you know about Blake specifically? He shook his head. No, but I knew something was off. She's been different lately, more secretive, more entitled than usual, more dismissive of anything that didn't serve what she wanted in the moment. He looked at me with something like respect. You're handling this better than most men would. Most guys would be throwing punches or making threats by now. I'm not interested in drama, Richard. I just want out clean. I want my money back, my dignity intact, and to never see her again. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You deserved better than what my daughter gave you. You're a good man who was going to be a good husband, and she threw that away for nothing. Coming from her father, that meant something. Not everything, but something. The fallout started about 4 days after I canceled everything. Brittany called me 17 times in a single afternoon. I let every single call go to voicemail. The messages escalated from confused to angry, to threatening to pathetic over the course of a few hours. What do you mean the wedding is canceled? You can't just cancel our wedding without discussing it with me. Garrett, pick up the phone. This isn't funny. People are calling me asking what happened and I don't know what to tell them. If you don't call me back in 1 hour, we're done. I mean it. I'm done trying. Please, just talk to me. Whatever I did, whatever you think I did, we can work it out. We can figure this out together. She showed up at my house that evening. I was in the garage working on my motorcycle when her car pulled into the driveway too fast. She stormed in like she still owned the place, like she had any right to be there. What is wrong with you? You canceled our entire wedding without even talking to me about it first? Do you have any idea what you've done? I set down my wrench and wiped my hands on a shop rag, kept my voice level and calm. I know about Blake, Brittany. Her face went through about 6 different expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, denial, fear, calculation, more denial. Then finally, the last refuge of someone caught dead to rights, playing dumb. Who? I almost laughed again. The mortgage broker. The one you've been sleeping with for the past few months. The married mortgage broker, by the way. His wife's name is Jennifer. They have 2 kids together, a boy and a girl. Nice family photos on his Facebook. The color drained from her face completely. How did you... Does it matter how I know? You cheated on me. Multiple times over multiple months. While planning our wedding. While asking me to fund your vacations. While calling me controlling for having basic boundaries about money. It's not what you think it is. Spare me. I saw the text. Last night was incredible. That's not a friendship text, Brittany. That's not a colleague text. That's not a text that has any innocent explanation. She started crying. The manipulative kind of crying that's more performance than genuine emotion. The kind designed to make me feel guilty for catching her. I made a mistake. One mistake. You can't throw away everything we built together over one mistake. One mistake that happened repeatedly over several months, while you were engaged to me, while I was working overtime and double shifts to pay for our future together. I shook my head. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. That's a series of choices you made knowing exactly what you were doing and not caring how it would hurt me. I was confused. You were so focused on work all the time, and Blake paid attention to me. He made me feel special and wanted... So it's my fault you cheated? Because I worked too much? The same work that paid for the ring on your finger? That funded our wedding account? That would have paid for your precious Cabo trip if I'd been stupid enough to agree? She had nothing to say to that. Just stood there crying, looking around my garage like she was seeing it for the first time. Like she was finally realizing what she'd thrown away. We're done, Brittany. The wedding's canceled. The accounts are separated. I want my house key back, and I want you to collect whatever stuff you left here by the end of the week. After that, I don't want to hear from you again. You can't do this to me. I'll tell everyone what you did. How you abandoned me right before our wedding. How you're a controlling monster who tried to isolate me from my friends. I shrugged. Go ahead. Tell them whatever you want. I'll tell them why I actually left. That stopped her cold. The threat of public exposure for her cheating was apparently more terrifying than losing me ever was. She left without another word, dropped my house key on the workbench like it burned her hand, and peeled out of my driveway fast enough to leave tire marks on the concrete. The next few weeks were interesting. Word spread fast in our social circles about the canceled wedding. Most people were tactful enough not to ask directly what happened, but I could tell from the whispered conversations and sideways glances at the gym and the grocery store that rumors were flying everywhere. Brittany apparently told her version of events first. According to Jake, who heard it from his girlfriend who heard it from someone at her CrossFit class, I was a controlling monster who had canceled the wedding because I couldn't handle Brittany having independence and friends. I had been financially abusive, emotionally manipulative, and ultimately abandoned her 3 weeks before their big day because I wanted to punish her for not being submissive enough. I didn't bother correcting the narrative publicly. Didn't need to. The truth has a way of coming out on its own when you're patient enough to let it. It came out at Megan's birthday party, of all places. I wasn't there, obviously, but Jake's girlfriend was there with some mutual friends. She gave me the full play-by-play afterwards, over dinner at Jake's place, clearly enjoying every detail. The Fabulous Five had gathered at some rooftop bar downtown for Megan's 30th birthday celebration. Expensive venue, VIP section, Instagram-ready decorations everywhere. Brittany was there, playing the role of the wronged woman, accepting sympathy and validation from her friends like she was collecting communion wafers at church. At some point in the evening, she got way too comfortable with the attention she was getting. Started getting loud, started talking about how men were trash, how I had ruined her life, how she was better off without me anyway, how she was going to find someone who actually appreciated her. That's when someone at the party, a friend of a friend who happened to know Blake's wife Jennifer through their kid's school, dropped the bomb that changed everything. Wait, isn't Blake the guy you were sleeping with? The married one whose wife just found out and is filing for divorce now? The entire bar went quiet. Every head turned. Everyone stared at Brittany. According to Jake's girlfriend, the next few minutes were excruciatingly awkward silence, followed by chaos. Brittany tried to deny everything, then tried to minimize what had happened, then tried to blame me for being neglectful and emotionally unavailable, and pushing her into Blake's arms because I didn't give her enough attention. None of it played well with the crowd that had gathered to watch. Megan tried to run interference, tried to change the subject, tried to pull Brittany away from the growing audience. But even she couldn't spin this one into something acceptable. Brittany had been caught in a massive lie in front of everyone she cared about impressing. The wronged victim narrative collapsed in real time, like a house of cards in a windstorm. And then it got worse. Ashley, one of the Fabulous Five who'd always seemed slightly more sensible than the others, had apparently been suspicious for a while. She'd seen texts on Brittany's phone months ago at a brunch, but hadn't said anything because she didn't want drama. But now, with everything already out in the open, she decided it was time to share what she knew. The affair had been going on for nearly 4 months. Not the few weeks Brittany had implied. Blake had been buying her expensive gifts, taking her to fancy hotels downtown, promising he would leave his wife as soon as the timing was right and as soon as the kids were a little older. Classic cheater playbook, word for word. Brittany had been playing both sides the entire time. Engaged to me, sleeping with Blake, lying to everyone about everything, planning a wedding while planning her escape route, taking my money while spending time in another man's bed. The birthday party pretty much ended after that revelation. Brittany left in tears. Alone, her Uber arriving to pick her up while everyone watched in silence. The Fabulous Five scattered to their own corners, the hive mind fractured for the first time anyone could remember, and the carefully constructed narrative of Garrett the controlling monster crumbled into dust that blew away in the night wind. 2 weeks after the party, Brittany tried to salvage things with Blake. According to multiple sources who witnessed it, she showed up at his office building around lunchtime, when the lobby would be packed with people heading out to grab food. She marched right up to the reception desk and demanded they call Blake down immediately, because she needed to speak with him about their future together. When Blake came down, probably expecting a client or something work-related, his face apparently went white as a sheet. Brittany started making a scene right there in front of everyone, demanding he leave his wife like he'd promised, saying she'd given up everything for him, asking why he wasn't answering her calls or texts. Building security had to physically escort her out while she screamed about how he'd ruined her life and how he was a liar and a coward. The whole thing was witnessed by at least 30 people, including several of Blake's co-workers and a few clients waiting in the lobby. His reputation at that company was basically destroyed overnight. His wife, Jennifer, had given him an ultimatum right after she found out about the affair, and Blake chose his marriage without a second thought. He blocked Brittany's number, blocked her on every social media platform, and apparently transferred to a different branch office across town just to avoid any chance of running into her. That was that. Then she lost her job. Turns out the real estate community in our area is pretty tight-knit. Word got around about her affair with a married colleague, and her broker decided the liability wasn't worth it. She was asked to transition to another opportunity within 30 days. Without the dual income she'd been counting on from our marriage, she couldn't afford her condo anymore. Missed 2 mortgage payments before the bank started sending letters. Her parents had to step in and help her sell it before it went into foreclosure. She cleared maybe $8,000 after paying off the loan and all the fees. Last I heard from Jake's girlfriend, Brittany moved back in with Richard and Linda, the same parents who'd spent 2 years looking down on me for being a welder. Now they were supporting their adult daughter, who'd blown up her engagement, lost her job, and had to sell her condo at a loss. Megan's birthday party became legendary in our social circle. People talked about it for months. The night Brittany's entire fabricated reality came crashing down in front of the same friends she'd spent years trying to impress. About 3 months after everything went down, I ran into Ashley at the grocery store. She walked up to me in the produce section, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Hey, Garrett. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I should have said something when I first saw those texts on her phone. I knew what she was doing was wrong, but I didn't want to get involved. That wasn't fair to you." I shrugged. "You're not the one who cheated on me. Not your responsibility to police your friends. Still, you deserve to know. And for what it's worth, the Fabulous Five isn't really a thing anymore. Courtney and Danielle stopped talking to Brittany after the party. Megan's still defending her, but nobody takes Megan seriously anyway." She paused. "You seem like you're doing okay, though." "I am," I said, and I meant it. 6 months after the canceled wedding, Jake threw a barbecue at his place. Just close friends, some guys from work, his girlfriend, and a few people I didn't know. Grill going in the backyard, Duke the golden retriever stealing food off plates, music playing from a speaker on the porch. Jake's girlfriend brought her cousin Rachel. She was a nurse at the hospital downtown, had just moved to the area from Colorado. We got to talking about the house renovation, about welding, about her work in the ER. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Didn't check her phone once during the entire conversation. We exchanged numbers before I left. First date was the following weekend. Took her to that sandwich shop near my work site, the same one where I'd seen Brittany with Blake. Felt like closing a loop somehow. Rachel didn't post pictures of our date on social media. Didn't ask me to transfer money into her account. Didn't call me controlling when I suggested we split the check. Just enjoyed the food, enjoyed the conversation, and made plans to do it again. By the time October rolled around, what would have been my wedding month, I'd finished the deck I'd been planning for the backyard. Cedar, not composite. Looks better. Smells amazing when the sun hits it. Rachel helped me stain it over a weekend. We ordered pizza and sat out there watching the sunset. Duke running around the yard because Jake had dropped him off while he was out of town. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Garrett, it's Brittany. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. I made a huge mistake, and I know that now. I've changed. I'm in a better place mentally. I was hoping we could talk sometime, maybe get coffee, and..." I deleted it before finishing. Blocked the number. Went back to watching the sunset with Rachel, Duke at our feet, cold drinks in hand. Some doors close for good reason. I wasn't interested in reopening that one. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. My fiancée demanded I sign over 20% of my company to her parents within 7 days. She didn't expect me to cancel the wedding and send her the bill. 7 days. That is exactly how long Brooke gave me to decide whether I was a real man who loved her or a greedy narcissist who cared more about his bank account than his future family. The choice she laid out for me was not about picking a wedding cake flavor or deciding between the Maldives or Italy for our honeymoon. No, this was a gun to my head. The demand was simple, according to her. I had 1 week to sign over 20% of my fleet maintenance company to her father, a man who I knew for a fact could not manage a lemonade stand without bankrupting it. If I did not sign the papers by next Friday, the wedding was off. She was leaving and I would die alone with my money. As she so eloquently put it, "I am Nathan, 34 years old. I did not inherit a dime. I did not have a safety net. I did not have some rich uncle who floated me startup cash or parents who co-signed loans for me. I built ironclad fleet services from the ground up, starting with one beat-up service truck and a maxed-out credit card when I was 22 years old. Now, 12 years later, we service and maintain commercial vehicle fleets across 3 states. We have contracts with shipping companies, bus lines, municipal vehicle departments, and private haulers who need their rigs running right. I have 200 employees who depend on me for their paychecks. I have contracts worth millions of dollars that took years to build. My hands are calloused from years of turning wrenches before I could afford to hire mechanics to do it for me. My back hurts when it rains from all those years crawling under trucks in shop bays, and I have more gray hairs than a man my age should have. But it is mine. Every single lift, every diagnostic machine, every service bay, every contract. It belongs to me because I earned it. The company started in my garage, literally my garage, attached to the duplex I was renting at the time. I was doing oil changes and brake jobs for local delivery trucks, working 18-hour days and eating ramen noodles for dinner because I could not afford anything else. I remember one winter where my heat got shut off because I put every dollar into buying a proper brake lathe instead of paying my gas bill. Slept in a sleeping bag for 2 weeks until I could make enough to get the heat turned back on. I used to do everything myself. Answer the phones, schedule the appointments, order the parts, do the actual repairs, send the invoices, chase down the payments. There were nights I slept on a cot in the shop because I had a truck that needed to be ready by 6 in the morning, and the job was not done yet. I missed holidays, I missed birthdays, I missed my own life for years because I was building something. My friends thought I was crazy. My family thought I was throwing my life away. My dad told me to get a real job at least 100 times during those first few years. He did not understand why I would give up a steady paycheck to gamble on some dream about fixing trucks. But I knew what I was building. I could see it even when nobody else could. The hardest part was the loneliness. When you are grinding 18 hours a day, you do not have time for relationships. You do not have time for friends. You do not have time for anything except the work. I watched my buddies from high school get married, have kids, buy houses. I was living in a studio apartment above a laundromat, eating canned soup for dinner and falling asleep with grease still under my fingernails. But I kept going. Every time I wanted to quit, I would think about what I was building. Not just a business, but a legacy. Something that was mine. Something nobody could take away from me. The first real turning point came when I landed a contract with a regional bus company. They had a fleet of 40 buses and their previous maintenance provider had been ripping them off for years. I underbid the competition by 30% and still made a profit because I was not padding invoices with phantom repairs. Word got around, more contracts came in. By year 5, I had moved out of my garage and into a proper shop with 4 service bays. By year 8, I had 3 locations. Now I have got 6 facilities across 3 states, a parts distribution warehouse, a mobile service fleet that can do roadside repairs, and a reputation in the industry as the company that does honest work at fair prices. I remember the day I signed the lease on that first real shop. It was a rundown building on the edge of an industrial park, surrounded by weeds and broken concrete. The previous tenant had been some kind of pallet recycling operation, and the place smelled like rotting wood, but it had high ceilings and roll-up doors and room for lifts. I stood in the middle of that empty space and I could see exactly what it was going to become. My dad came to the grand opening. First time he ever said he was proud of me. Took him 5 years, but he finally got it. He understood that I was not throwing my life away. I was building something real. And Brooke? Brooke was the woman I thought was my sanctuary from the war zone of business. We had been together for 2 years. She was 28, stunning, sharp, and came from a family that acted like royalty. Her father, Howard, and her mother, Patricia, carried themselves with a kind of stiff upper lip arrogance that usually screams old money. They drove leased luxury cars, wore designer clothes that were always a season old if you knew what to look for, and drank imported stuff that cost more than my first truck payment. I should have seen the signs earlier. The first time I met Howard, he spent 45 minutes asking me questions about my business. Not polite interest questions, but detailed questions about revenue and profit margins and contract structures. At the time, I thought he was just being thorough, a protective father making sure his daughter was not dating some deadbeat. Looking back, I realized he was sizing up the merchandise. I loved Brooke. I really did. She softened my rough edges, or at least she was good at pretending to. She knew how to make me feel like I was more than just a guy who fixed trucks for a living. She would dress up for our dates, plan these elaborate weekends away, and make me feel like I had finally made it. Like all those years of struggle had been worth it because I had earned a woman like her. But looking back, I realized I was just the mark, the big dumb workhorse who was going to pull their family carriage out of the mud. Every compliment she ever gave me was probably calculated. Every romantic gesture was an investment in her future payout. The ambush happened on a Tuesday night. I had just walked in the door smelling like diesel and exhaust after spending 12 hours at the main depot fixing a crisis. One of our mobile service trucks had broken down in the middle of a roadside repair job, which meant I had to drive out there myself, finish the customer repair, then figure out what was wrong with our own truck. Then one of my managers called in sick, and I had to cover his shift doing inspections on a fleet of delivery vans that had a deadline. I was exhausted. All I wanted was a shower and some food. Maybe fall asleep on the couch watching something mindless. Brooke was sitting at the dining table when I walked in. No dinner waiting, no greeting, just a thick manila envelope sitting in front of her like a centerpiece. Her posture was formal, almost rigid, like she had been rehearsing this moment. "We need to talk, Nathan," she said. Her voice was ice cold. Not angry, just business. Like she was conducting a meeting. I dropped my keys on the counter and kicked off my work boots. My feet ached and I could feel the grime from the day coating my skin. "Can it wait?" I asked. I just lost 2 hours because a mobile unit threw a serpentine belt on the highway and had to rerun a job myself. I am beat. "No, it cannot wait," she said, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on the envelope. "This is about our future. My parents came over today while you were at work." I groaned internally. Howard and Patricia. Great. The last time they visited, Howard spent an hour telling me about some guaranteed investment opportunity that turned out to be some kind of sketchy crypto scheme. The guy had all the financial sense of a lemming, heading toward a cliff. "What do they want?" I asked, walking toward the fridge. "Another loan for the country club dues?" I was half joking. I had already lent them $5,000 a few months ago to cover what they claimed was a temporary cash flow issue. I knew I would never see that money again. I had written it off in my head the moment I handed over the check. "Stop being disrespectful," Brooke snapped. Her voice had an edge to it I had not heard before. "They are worried about me, about us. They think it is unfair that I am coming into this marriage with nothing to my name while you hold all the assets. They want security." I turned around slowly. "Security?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Brooke, you are marrying a man who owns a company that nets 7 figures a year. You are getting a prenup that guarantees you a very comfortable payout if things go south. A prenup, by the way, that I barely wanted to sign but did because you asked me to. You have security." She pushed the envelope toward me across the table. "That is not enough. Open it." I walked over and picked up the envelope. It felt heavy in my hands. Heavier than paper should feel. I ripped it open and pulled out a stack of legal documents. The top page had a law firm letterhead I did not recognize. It was a transfer of equity agreement. The document outlined the transfer of 20% of Ironclad Fleet Services, structured as non-voting shares, to Howard and Patricia Whitmore. The transfer would become effective immediately upon the signing of our marriage license. I stared at the paper. The words did not make sense at first. It was like reading a joke written in legalese. My brain kept rejecting what my eyes were seeing. "Is this a prank?" I asked, looking up at her. "Are your parents messing with me?" "No," she said, standing up from the table. She smoothed her skirt and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, almost predatory. "It is an insurance policy. My father says that business is volatile. Companies fail all the time. If something happens to you, or if you decide to trade me in for a younger model in 10 years, my family needs to be protected. They raised me. They invested in me. They sacrificed for me. They deserve a return on that investment." I felt the blood drain from my face. Then it rushed back in, hot and violent. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. "A return on investment," I repeated slowly. "You are talking like you are a stock I bought. You are my fiancée, Brooke, not a business transaction. Not a racehorse I am betting on. Do not be crude," she said, waving her hand dismissively, like I was being unreasonable. "It makes perfect sense if you think about it logically. You built this company, yes, but you built it alone. Now we are going to be a team. My parents have connections. Daddy knows people in city government. He has friends on the transportation board. He could help you expand into municipal contracts, maybe double your revenue in 5 years. This 20% is just a gesture of good faith. Think of it as a dowry in reverse." "A dowry," I repeated. I threw the papers back onto the table. They slid across the polished wood and scattered onto the floor. Some of the pages separated and fanned out across the hardwood. "Brooke, are you hearing yourself?" I asked. "You want me to give away 1/5 of my life's work to your father? The same guy who tried to sell me a guaranteed crypto scheme at Thanksgiving? The guy who has never held a real job as long as I have known him? He is a gambler, Brooke. He is incompetent. I would not hire him to sweep my warehouse floors, let alone let him own a piece of my company." Her eyes narrowed. The softness I had fallen in love with was gone. What I saw underneath was something hard and calculating. "Be careful, Nathan. That is my father you are talking about." "I do not care who he is," I said, my patience finally snapping. "This is my company. Mine. I bled for this. I missed my own brother's funeral because I was keeping this company from going under during the recession. I slept in my shop for months. I ate garbage. I worked until my hands cracked and bled. I am not handing over 20% to anyone. Not to your dad, not to the president, not to you. Brooke did not flinch. She did not raise her voice. She just crossed her arms and delivered the line that ended us, though I did not fully realize it in that moment. Then we have a problem. Because I am not marrying a man who does not trust my family. If you do not sign that paper by next Friday, 1 week from today, I am packing my bags. I will not marry a selfish man. She turned and walked out of the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She left me standing there in my dirty work clothes, the contract pages scattered on the floor around my feet like confetti from the worst party ever thrown. I did not sleep that night. I went to the guest room and lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing through every interaction I had ever had with Brooke and her parents, re-examining everything through this new lens. The next morning, I did not go to work. I called my operations manager and told him I was dealing with a personal emergency. Then I called Leah. Leah is not just a lawyer. She is a shark in a pantsuit. We went to college together before I dropped out to start the business, and she went on to law school. She graduated top of her class and spent 10 years at a big firm before going independent. She has been my legal counsel since year 3 of Ironclad. She negotiated my biggest contracts. She handled a lawsuit from a former employee who tried to claim I owed him equity for suggesting we expand to a second location. She won that case in about 45 minutes. I drove to her office downtown, a sleek space on the 14th floor of a building I probably could not afford to rent a closet in. Her assistant waved me through, and I found Leah at her desk, reviewing documents with her reading glasses perched on her nose. I threw the crumpled contract on her glass desk without saying hello. "Read this," I said, "and tell me if I can legally set fire to it." Leah picked up the papers, smoothed them out, and put on her glasses. She scanned the document for about 30 seconds. Then she let out a low, sharp whistle. "Wow," she said, looking up at me over the rim of her glasses. "Nathan, this is not just a transfer of shares. Did you read the whole thing?" I got about 2 pages in before I wanted to punch a wall. "Look at Clause 4, she said, flipping to a page and sliding it toward me. I picked it up and read. The legal language was dense, but Leah translated. Clause 4 grants the minority shareholders, meaning her parents, audit rights, and the ability to veto any expenditure over $10,000, she explained. "Nathan, if you signed this, they would not just own 20% of the profits. They would control your checkbook. You would not be able to buy a new diagnostic machine without asking Daddy for permission." My stomach turned. I sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "They want control. They want to gut you," Leah corrected. She leaned back in her chair. "I did a little digging on Howard Whitmore last week, actually. A friend of mine in commercial real estate mentioned his name. What did you find? Did you know he is being sued by 2 separate contractors for unpaid renovations on their summer home? And he is 3 months behind on his primary mortgage. The bank has already sent preliminary foreclosure notices." Everything clicked into place. The old money arrogance. The vague answers about what Howard actually did for a living these days. The way they always seemed to be spending money they did not have. The designer clothes that were always slightly out of season. The leased cars that seemed to get downgraded every year. They were not protecting Brooke. They were broke. They were drowning. And I was the life raft. They did not want a partnership. They wanted a host to feed on. "They are broke," I whispered. "Destitute," Leah confirmed. "Living on fumes and credit cards, and whatever they can grift from people who do not know better. This is not a wedding gift request, Nathan. This is a hostile takeover disguised as a marriage vow. Brooke is the Trojan horse." I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It was not the hot, explosive anger from the night before. This was different. This was the cold, calculating focus I used when I was negotiating a multi-million-dollar fleet contract. When I was deciding whether to take a risk on a new location or walk away from a deal that smelled wrong. I stopped seeing Brooke as the woman I loved and started seeing her as a liability, a bad investment, a risk I needed to mitigate. "What do I do?" I asked. Leah smiled, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile she had right before she destroyed opposing counsel in a courtroom. "She gave you a deadline, right? 7 days? Yeah. Next Friday. Good. Use them. Do not break up with her yet. Let them think you are considering it. If they think they have you on the hook, they will get sloppy. They will say things they should not say. I want you to get them on record admitting why they really want the shares." "Why? Because if you just dump her now, she will spin the narrative," Leah explained. "She will tell everyone you are abusive, controlling, or cheating. I have seen it 100 times. The person who speaks first controls the story. We need ammunition before you pull the trigger." I went home that night and played the role of the beaten man. I told Brooke I was thinking about it. I told her that 20% was a lot, but I loved her and I wanted to make this work. I said I needed to understand the arrangement better before I could commit. She ate it up. Her demeanor changed instantly. She went from ice queen back to loving fiancé. She touched my arm, kissed my neck, told me she knew I would do the right thing. She said her parents just wanted what was best for us, for our future family. It made my skin crawl. Every touch felt calculated. Every smile felt like a mask. 2 days later, on Thursday, her parents invited us over for dinner. To celebrate the understanding, Brooke said, I knew what it really was. A victory lap. They thought they had won. I wore a wire. Well, not a wire like in the movie, but I had my phone recording in my front shirt pocket, the microphone facing out. Leah had walked me through the state laws on recording. We were in a one-party consent state, which meant I could legally record any conversation I was a part of without telling the other parties. The dinner was lavish, expensive cuts of meat, fancy side dishes, crystal glasses that probably cost more than my first set of socket wrenches. They were spending money they did not have to seal the deal, celebrating a payday that was never going to come. Patricia had outdone herself with the presentation. Fresh flowers on the table, cloth napkins, the whole 9 yards. It felt like a performance, like they were showing me what my money could buy them. After dessert, Howard leaned back in his chair with a satisfied expression. He pulled out a cigar and made a show of lighting it. I am glad you are seeing reason, Nathan, he said, puffing smoke toward the ceiling. You know, this business of yours? It is impressive, really impressive, but it needs guidance, experienced guidance. With my experience and connections, we could really expand this thing. Maybe get into government contracts. I have friends at the State Transportation Department. I know people who make decisions about municipal fleet maintenance contracts. I kept my expression neutral. That sounds promising, Howard, I said, forcing a smile. But 20%. That is a big chunk of the company. Are you sure you can handle the liability? If the company ever got sued, you would be on the hook too as an equity holder. Howard laughed, waving his hand dismissively. Oh, do not worry about that. That is why we structured the shares in a trust? Asset protection? Brooke explained it to you, right? She did. I lied. But tell me something, Howard. Why now? Why is it so urgent that we do this before the wedding? Why not wait until after we are married and do a proper arrangement then? Howard exchanged a look with Patricia, a nervous look, the kind of look people exchange when they are caught off guard by a question they should have anticipated. Well, Patricia chimed in, her voice a little too bright. We just want to make sure Brooke is settled. You know how volatile business can be. Markets crash. Companies fail. We just want stability for our daughter. Stability, I repeated. I paused, letting the silence stretch out. Is it true, Howard, that you are 3 months behind on your mortgage? The room went dead silent. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, the clink of ice settling in a glass. Howard's face turned a violent shade of red. His cigar hand trembled slightly. Who told you that? It does not matter, I said, leaning forward and placing my hands on the table. Is it true? Is this 20% about Brooke's security? Or is it about you needing a cash cow because you have run out of other options? Because from where I am sitting, this looks a lot less like protecting your daughter, and a lot more like a desperate grab for money you have not earned. Brooke slammed her hand on the table, making the silverware jump. Nathan, stop it. How dare you investigate my parents? How dare you question their intentions? I dare because you asked for 20% of my life, I snapped, dropping the act completely. I turned back to Howard. I know about the lawsuits, Howard. I know about the unpaid contractors who did work on your summer home and never saw a dime. I know about the credit card debt and the second mortgage you took out 2 years ago that you have already defaulted on. You are not looking for a partnership. You are looking for a bailout. You want me to pay for your lifestyle. Howard stood up so fast his chair fell over backward. His face was purple with rage now. You ungrateful little mechanic, he spat. You think you are better than us because you got lucky with some trucks? We are Whitmores. We have a legacy. We have a name. Our family has been respected in this community for 3 generations. Your legacy is debt, I said calmly, and I am not paying for it. Then get out, Brooke screamed. Her composure was completely gone now. Her face was contorted with rage. Get out of my parents' house and do not come back until you have that contract signed. You have until Friday, Nathan, or we are done. I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back with deliberate calm. I reached into my shirt pocket and pulled out my phone, making a show of stopping the recording. We are done now, I said. And Brooke, do not bother packing your bags. I will have movers send your stuff here tomorrow. Since you love your parents so much, you can live with them. I am sure they have plenty of room, at least until the bank forecloses. I walked out the front door without looking back. I heard Brooke screaming something behind me, heard Patricia trying to calm her down, heard Howard yelling about respect and ingratitude. I just kept walking, got in my truck, started the engine, Sat there for a moment in the driveway, collecting myself. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from the adrenaline of finally saying what I had been holding in, from the release of dropping that mask and being honest about what I thought of these people and their scheme. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through the back roads. I needed time to think, time to process what had just happened. Part of me felt sick about how everything had turned out. This was the woman I had planned to marry. These were the people I had expected to become my family, and now it was all burning down around me. But another part of me felt free, lighter than I had felt in months. I had not even realized how much weight I had been carrying, trying to make Brooke happy, trying to impress her parents, trying to live up to standards that were never really about me at all. The fallout was nuclear. Brooke blew up my phone for the next 24 hours straight. First it was threats, then begging, then bargaining. She called me 57 times. I counted. She left voicemails that swung wildly from furious to tearful to pleading. She told me I was throwing away true love over money. She told me I would never find anyone as beautiful as her. She told me I was going to die lonely and bitter with nothing but my trucks and my money to keep me warm at night. Then she told me she was pregnant. That one actually made me pause for about 30 seconds. Then I called Leah. Leah made a few calls and confirmed what I already suspected. Brooke could not possibly be pregnant by me. 3 years ago, after a long-term relationship ended badly, I had gotten a vasectomy. Brooke knew about it. We had discussed it. She had told me she did not want kids anyway. In her panic, she must have forgotten that little detail, or she thought I would be too emotional to think clearly. Either way, the lie confirmed everything I needed to know about who she really was. Then came the smear campaign. By Saturday, Brooke had posted a long, tearful video on social media. She did not mention the shares. Oh no, that would make her look bad. Instead, she claimed I was emotionally abusive. She claimed I was controlling. She claimed I had cut her off from her family because I was threatened by their success and their social standing. She cried on camera. She talked about how scared she had been. She made herself sound like a victim escaping a monster. The video got traction. People I knew started texting me. Friends, acquaintances, business contacts. Dude, is this true? Nathan, I had no idea you were like that. My wife saw the video. Are you okay? A client actually called me Monday morning, asking if everything was all right because his wife had seen Brooke's video and was worried about doing business with someone who treated women that way. My reputation was taking hits. Years of building trust and goodwill were being eroded by a 3-minute video full of lies. I called Leah. Release it. Leah posted the audio recording of the dinner conversation. She did not just post it. She sent it directly to every mutual friend Brooke and I had. She sent it to every person who had commented on Brooke's video. She had a legal statement drafted that we posted on my personal page with the audio attached. The caption was simple and direct. I do not usually air dirty laundry publicly, but I will not be slandered. My ex-fiancée demanded 20% of my company as a condition of marriage to pay off her parents' gambling debts and mortgage default. When I refused, she tried to destroy my reputation. Here is the truth. Listen for yourself. The internet is a funny place. It loves a victim, but it loves justice even more. The audio was damning. You could clearly hear Howard admitting to the financial problems. You could hear Brooke screaming about the contract. You could hear the sheer entitlement dripping from their voices. Howard calling me an ungrateful little mechanic. Patricia talking about returns on investment, like their daughter was a stock portfolio. The tide turned so fast it gave me whiplash. The comments on Brooke's video went from "Stay Strong Queen" to "Gold Digger" exposed in about an hour. People started sharing the audio. It got picked up by a couple of those social media drama accounts. Screenshots started circulating. Brooke deleted her video. Then she deleted her entire social media presence. Gone overnight. By Tuesday, the whole thing had blown over for everyone except the Whitmore family. But I was not done. I had put deposits down on the wedding venue. $40,000, non-refundable. I had paid for the florist, the band, the catering, the photographer, the videographer, the fancy invitations that had already been sent out. All in, I was out about $70,000. I could have eaten the loss. I have the money, but it was the principle. These people had tried to rob me of 20% of my company. They had tried to manipulate me into signing away something I had spent 12 years building. They did not get to walk away without feeling some consequences. I sent an invoice to Howard Whitmore, not for the wedding costs. I knew he could not pay that. I sent an invoice for the consulting fee of reviewing their fraudulent contract, billed at my company's standard rate for legal consultation, plus the cost of the movers I had hired to pack up Brooke's belongings from my house and deliver them to her parents' driveway. He did not pay, obviously. I did not expect him to. But I did something better. I called the wedding venue. I explained that the wedding was off, but I had already paid for the space and the date. I asked if there was any way to salvage the situation. The event coordinator was sympathetic. She mentioned that they sometimes worked with charities who needed event space. Something clicked in my head. I made some calls. Found a local organization that helps veterans transition back to civilian life. Job training, housing assistance, that kind of thing. They were planning a fundraising gala, but had been struggling to find an affordable venue. I donated my wedding reservation to them. The catering, the band, the flowers, all of it. Turned what was supposed to be my wedding day into a fundraising event for wounded veterans. The gala raised over $50,000 in one night. I stood on the stage where I was supposed to say I do, and instead, I handed a check to a Marine who had lost his leg overseas, a guy who had sacrificed more for this country than Howard Whitmore had ever sacrificed for anything. The Marine's name was Jeff. He shook my hand with a grip that could crush concrete and told me that the money was going to help him start a small engine repair business. He had been a mechanic in the Corps before his injury, said he missed working with his hands, said the hardest part of losing his leg was feeling useless. I told him I understood. I told him about starting my own business with nothing but determination and a maxed-out credit card. We talked for almost an hour after the event, swapping stories about the challenges of entrepreneurship and the satisfaction of building something real. Before I left, I gave him my business card, told him if he ever needed advice or connections or just someone to talk shop with, to give me a call. He has called twice since then, once to ask about insurance options for small businesses, once just to say thank you again. That felt better than any revenge ever could. Brooke tried to reach out one last time. About a month after everything went down, she sent a letter to my office. No return address. It was handwritten on expensive stationery. Nathan, I miss you. My parents were wrong. I see that now. I should never have listened to them. I should never have let them pressure me into asking for the shares. I am staying at a friend's place now. I left them. Can we just get together and talk? I promise no contracts, no lawyers, just us. I still love you. I know you still love me. I read the letter twice. I felt a twinge of something. Maybe sadness, maybe nostalgia. We did have good times. There were moments when I thought she was the one. Moments when I imagined building a life with her. But then I remembered the look in her eyes when she slapped that envelope on the table. The cold calculation. The way she had transformed from loving fiancé to corporate negotiator in an instant. The look of a woman who did not see a husband, but a bank account. I took a red marker from my desk drawer, wrote return to sender across the front of the envelope in big block letters, dropped it in the outgoing mail. Never heard from her directly again. But I heard plenty from other people. The grapevine kept me updated whether I wanted it or not. 3 months after our non-wedding, Howard lost the house. The bank finally foreclosed. A buddy of mine in real estate sent me pictures of the foreclosure auction listing. The house I had eaten Thanksgiving dinner in, the house where Howard had called me an ungrateful mechanic, sold for about 60% of what they owed on it. The bank took a loss. Howard and Patricia took a bigger one. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a town about 40 minutes away. Downsized everything. Sold the leased Mercedes. Sold Patricia's jewelry collection piece by piece on consignment. Sold the summer home at a loss just to settle the contractor lawsuits before they went to judgment. Howard tried to start a consulting business after that. Put up a website, printed business cards, the whole thing. Nobody hired him. His reputation in the business community was completely shot after the audio went viral. Turns out people do not want to work with a guy who calls mechanics ungrateful and talks about his daughter like she is livestock at auction. Last I heard, he was working part-time at a golf course, not playing golf, driving the beverage cart around and picking up empty cups from the guys who actually have money. Brooke landed at a car dealership as a receptionist, entry-level position, the kind of job she used to mock when she talked about people who had not reached their potential. I know this because my parts supplier told me. He went in to buy a truck, and there she was behind the front desk, answering phones and scheduling service appointments. He said she looked tired, said she pretended not to recognize him, even though they had met at least 5 times at company events when she was still with me. He bought his truck somewhere else. Her social media came back eventually, but it is different now. No more designer handbags. No more vacation photos from expensive resorts. Just generic inspirational quotes and pictures of food from chain restaurants. The comments are mostly from her mom and a couple of old college friends. Meanwhile, things were moving fast on my end. Ironclad Fleet Services opened a new facility in Texas 6 months after the breakup. Major expansion into the Southwest market. We landed a 5-year contract with a regional transit authority that needed a reliable maintenance partner. The deal was worth more than everything I had made in my first 3 years of business combined. I flew down for the grand opening, cut the ribbon, shook hands with the local mayor who wanted photos for his re-election campaign, hired 22 new employees, most of them military veterans who knew how to work hard and show up on time. The ring I had bought for Brooke, returned it. Got about 60% back, which was better than I expected. Put the money toward a new alignment rack for the Texas shop. I started dating again about 4 months after everything went down. Her name is Claire, 4th grade teacher at an elementary school near my main facility. We met at a coffee shop when she was grading papers, and I was answering emails. She spilled her drink reaching for a napkin, and it landed on my laptop. She was mortified. I told her the laptop was 3 years old, and I needed an excuse to replace it anyway. She insisted on buying me a new coffee. I insisted on buying her dinner to make up for the stress I had clearly caused her. We went back and forth for 5 minutes until the barista told us to just exchange numbers already. First date, she showed up in jeans and a sweater, drove herself in an 8-year-old Honda Civic that she was genuinely proud of because she had paid it off 2 years early. When the check came, she pulled out her card before I could even reach for my wallet. I told her I was happy to pay. She told me she was happy to split it. We split it. She asked what I did for work. I told her I fix trucks. She said that sounded important because people need their stuff moved around. That was it. No follow-up questions about revenue or expansion plans or equity structures. Last month, I took her to meet my parents. My mom pulled me aside in the kitchen and asked where I had been hiding this one. I told her I found her at a coffee shop covered in spilled latte. Mom said that was the most romantic thing she had ever heard. 2 weeks ago, I ran into someone unexpected. I was at a steakhouse downtown, the nice one I used to take Brooke to for special occasions. Claire and I were celebrating her getting tenure at her school. We had just ordered appetizers when I spotted a familiar face across the restaurant. Brooke, sitting at a table with some guy I did not recognize. He looked about 10 years older than her. Decent suit, nervous energy. Probably a first or second date based on the body language. She saw me at almost the same moment I saw her. Our eyes met across the room. I watched her face cycle through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, embarrassment, something that might have been regret. I just nodded. Polite, neutral, like she was a former coworker I vaguely remembered. Then I turned back to Claire and asked her about the field trip her class was taking next week. Something about a nature center and a bunch of 9-year-olds trying to catch frogs. I did not look at Brooke again for the rest of the did not need to, did not want to. When the check came, Claire tried to grab it. I was faster this time, told her she could get the next one. We walked out of the restaurant holding hands. I opened her car door for her because that is just what you do. She kissed me before getting in and told me she had a really good time. I drove home that night thinking about how different everything was. A year ago, I was planning a wedding to a woman who saw me as a retirement fund. Now I was dating a teacher who got excited about frog-catching field trips and drove a paid-off Honda. Funny how things work out. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.